On the day of my wedding to William Thompson, Silicon Valley's golden boy, his college classmate Grace Young got into a car crash. He was about to throw down his wedding band and run out when I grabbed his hand, hard. I leaned in and whispered that if he walked out that door, my family would instantly pull our venture capital funding from his tech startup. If we finished the ceremony today, the funding would go through. If he dared to leave, I would have him kicked out of his CEO seat by tomorrow morning. With a face of pure ice, he forced himself to stand by my side and finish the ceremony. But right after, news came from the hospital. Grace hadn't survived. William didn't say a single word. 3 months later, he took me to a private charity gala at a vineyard in Napa Valley. The moment I turned my back, he drugged my champagne and handed me over to his corrupt business partner, Vance. Mark took compromising photos and videos of me and sent them straight to William. William just sat on the plush leather sofa in the VIP lounge, laughing. "She's the one who forced me to marry her," he sneered. "This is her karma. Call the press. Tell them she cheated on me, got blackmailed, and died in a tragic accident." As my consciousness faded, the brutal truth finally hit me. William hated me. He blamed me for taking away his chance to save his precious Grace. When I opened my eyes again, William was holding the diamond wedding band, about to slide it onto my finger. I smiled. I turned my head, pulled out my phone, and called Arthur Blackwood. I asked him if he wanted to be my groom instead. By the power vested in me, the groom may now kiss the bride. The priest's voice was still echoing in my ears, but William's expression had turned incredibly strange. "Grace got into a car accident," he muttered. He hadn't even picked up the phone that was buzzing in his pocket yet. He just knew she was in trouble. Looking at the raw panic in his eyes, my heart felt like it had been plunged into freezing water. The memories of my past life rushed back like a tidal wave. The terrifying helplessness of being drugged. The rough, disgusting hands of Mark Vance tearing at my bridal gown. William's face as he sat on the sofa, laughing and saying I had deserved it. The humiliating video, and the bone-chilling wind as I fell from the vineyard balcony. William's hands trembled as he finally answered the call. "Grace, hold on. I'm coming. I'll be right there." Hanging up, William shook off my hand, the hand that was supposed to receive the ring. "And, Grace is in trouble. I have to go to her right now. Be reasonable. This is a matter of life and death." I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. Hard. The sharp smack echoed through the grand cathedral. The guests instantly fell dead silent. He cupped his cheek, his eyes wide with disbelief. "And, what the hell is wrong with you?" Seeing the disgust and self-righteousness in his eyes, I knew. He had regressed, too. Just like me. "You're right," I said, my voice dead calm. "I'm not going to make a scene." I slowly took off my own engagement ring. In front of hundreds of high society guests, I tossed it directly into the nearby champagne tower. The crystal glasses clinked and shattered. "The wedding is off. Get the hell out." The crowd erupted into whispers. William stood frozen, then knitted his brows, looking at me like I was just throwing a childish tantrum. "And, don't play games right now. Grace is waiting for me at the ER. I'll explain everything when I get back." He turned to leave. I stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "No need to explain. If you walk out, you walk out. But let's make one thing clear to everyone here, you are walking out on me. I didn't kick you out." Without even looking back, he threw a loud statement to the crowd, and wants to cancel the wedding. I respect her decision. Then, he rushed out of the cathedral. His parents' faces turned instantly green. They swarmed me, shouting accusations. "Anne. William left to save a life. How can you be so incredibly selfish? You're throwing a fit like this before you're even officially married? How are the two of you supposed to build a life together?" My parents instantly flared up, stepping forward to defend me. I held my dad's arm and shook my head, signaling him to stop. William's parents took my silence as submission. "Figure it out yourselves," his father huffed, leading their guests toward the exit. The massive venue emptied out by half in minutes. The remaining guests were whispering and pointing at me. My dad was shaking with rage, wanting to chase them down for an explanation. I held him back, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number I hadn't called in a very long time. "Arthur," I said when the line connected. "When you said you wanted to marry me last time, did you mean it?" "As long as I'm breathing, Anne. Always. I'm short of a groom at my wedding right now." "How fast can you get here?" 15 minutes. I hung up, looking up at my shocked parents, and then down at the wedding ring resting at the bottom of a champagne glass. While waiting, I whispered to my dad, telling him to immediately gather all the evidence of William embezzling company funds. "Once you have it, email it directly to the board of directors and the SEC, I instructed. Since he wanted to save his darling Grace so badly, he could pay for it with his CEO title. Arthur arrived even faster than promised. He was wearing a bespoke black suit, with a light dusting of snow on his shoulders. The moment he stepped through the heavy oak doors, every eye in the room locked onto him. He walked straight to me and handed me a black velvet box with his long, elegant fingers. I happened to carry a ring with me. The size should be perfect. I took the box and opened it. The ring inside was exactly my style, and when I slid it on, it fit perfectly. Are you sure about this, Arthur? If you marry me, you and William will be sworn enemies in the business world. He took my hand without a second thought. His voice was deep, warm, and steady. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. The priest recovered quickly, clearing his throat and announcing that the ceremony would proceed. The remaining guests went from shocked murmurs to stunned silence, which quickly erupted into thunderous applause. As Arthur and I exchanged rings, he leaned down and pressed a gentle, feather-light kiss against my lips. And, from this day on, I'll protect you. Feeling the warmth of his palm, the anxiety that had gripped my chest for 2 lifetimes finally dissolved. The moment the ceremony ended, my phone vibrated like crazy. It was a text from William on Snapchat. "Anne, I know you're just doing this to get back at me. Hiring an actor to play your groom? Really? Apologize to me right now, and I might consider coming back to finish the wedding later tonight." I figured his assistant, who had stayed behind, must have sent him photos of me and Arthur. I didn't reply. I just locked my screen. A second later, my phone rang. It was him. His voice was dripping with sarcasm. "And you really are desperate to get me back, aren't you? Hiring some random guy to play a role? You think this is funny?" Before I could speak, Grace's weak, trembling voice came through the receiver in the background. "William, don't blame Anne. She probably just loves you too much. She acted on impulse. Oh, by the way, I just asked the nurse. She said the brake lines on my car looked really strange, like someone tampered with them." William's fury instantly boiled over the line. I could practically feel his rage through the screen. "Anne. Was it you? Are you so jealous of Grace that you tried to murder her?" Hearing this utterly ridiculous accusation, I laughed out loud. "I don't have the time or the interest to touch her cheap car, William. Believe what you want. Stop lying. Why would Grace accuse you if it wasn't true?" He was completely deaf to reason. I didn't want to waste my breath, so I hung up and blocked his number on everything. Right after I blocked him, a text from an unknown number popped up. "If you want my forgiveness, come to the hospital, get on your knees, and apologize to Grace. And you're going to sign over your corneas to her. She might go blind. Do it, or I'm calling the police and throwing you in federal prison." I stared at the text, then slid my phone over to Arthur. Arthur glanced at the screen, and his eyes instantly turned predatory and cold. "Do you want me to handle this?" I shook my head, raising my glass of champagne to clink against his. "No. I want to ruin him myself." That evening, Arthur drove me back to my estate. The moment we pulled into the driveway, we saw William blocking the gates. He still smelled of hospital disinfectant, and his eyes were bloodshot. Seeing me get out of Arthur's SUV, he charged at me, reaching out to grab my arm. Arthur stepped in front of me like a wall, catching William's wrist and twisting it slightly. William groaned in pain. "Anne. You're actually serious about this guy?" He ripped his hand away from Arthur, glaring at me with disbelief. I leaned against the car door, looking at his indignant face. It was pathetic. "Of course I am. Did you honestly think my world revolved around you? And let me make this clear, whatever happened to Grace's eyes has nothing to do with me. Stop pointing fingers." William's face turned purple. He pointed at me, shaking. "Who else could it be? Who else hates Grace? I'm telling you, Anne, you're going to pay for her medical treatment, or I'll destroy you." He pulled out his phone, threatening to call the cops. "I have security footage of you near her car. If you don't comply, I'm sending you to jail." I didn't feel like playing his games. I unlocked my phone and dialed 911 myself. "Yes, officer. I'd like to report a stalker trespassing on my private property and harassing me. Please send a patrol car." William gasped, stunned by my move, then let out a cold laugh. "Good. Let the cops come. Let's see who they arrest." The police arrived within minutes. William rushed over to them immediately, shoving a flash drive into the deputy's hand. "Officer, I want to report a felony. This woman cut the brakes on my friend's car, causing an accident that might leave her blind. The evidence is right here." The deputy took the flash drive and looked at me. I pulled out a tablet from my bag, showing the security logs of my company's office from that day, along with signed affidavits from my executive team. "This is my alibi. I was in a board meeting all day. The video he has is a deepfake. I welcome a forensic audit." The deputy carefully reviewed my documents, made a quick call to verify the security company's logs, and turned to William with a stern look. "Mr. Thompson, this footage you provided has clear signs of digital manipulation. Filing a false police report is a serious crime." William's face drained of color. "That's impossible. Her alibi must be forged. She wanted to kill Grace. She's capable of anything." I didn't want to watch his manic episode anymore. I nodded politely to the officers. "Thank you, officers. I will be pressing charges for harassment and defamation." Even after the police ordered him to leave the perimeter, William lingered near the edge of the street, staring at me with venomous eyes. "Anne, I know you remember," he whispered, stepping closer. "I know you regress too. I know I wronged you in the past life, but Grace is innocent. Give her the medical settlement. If you do, I'll take the fall for the embezzlement charges. I won't drag your father, David, into this. Deal?" Hearing him twist the truth so effortlessly, I laughed in his face. "I already sent the embezzlement files to the SEC, William. You should worry about your own skin." William's face went completely white. Before he could speak, his phone rang. He picked it up. Within seconds, his hands were shaking so hard he almost dropped the device. William stood frozen like a statue. His assistant was screaming through the speaker, but William's hands were trembling so violently he couldn't even speak. "Impossible." I wiped all the digital footprints. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with madness and pure, unadulterated hatred. "You. And you set me up." He lunged at me again. Arthur stepped in, delivering a brutal kick straight to William's stomach. William stumbled back and fell hard onto the snow-covered driveway, looking utterly pathetic. "You embezzled the money yourself, William. Don't blame me for your own greed," I said, walking up to him and looking down at his miserable state. "When you threw me to your business partner in our past life, did you ever stop to think about this day?" William's pupils dilated. The remaining color drained from his face. You really did come back." Suddenly, he started laughing. It was a manic, hysterical laugh that brought tears to his eyes. "Fine. Great. Just you wait, Anne. This isn't over." He scrambled to his feet and stumbled away into the dark, leaving his buzzing phone on the ground. I picked it up. The screen was lit up with a text from Grace on Snapchat. "William, the doctor said without a transplant, I'll never see again. I'm so scared. Please don't blame Anne. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have been in your life." I stared at the screen, took a screenshot of the text, and tossed the phone into the trash can. Arthur walked over, draping his wool coat over my shoulders. "Are you cold? Let's go inside." I shook my head, pulling out my own phone to text my PR director. "Release the files on William's embezzlement and his arrest warrant for filing a false police report. Make it trend." Within 10 minutes, the internet exploded. Tech founder embezzlement trends. William Thompson Harris's ex trends. I scrolled through the comments on ins, watching the internet turn on him, calling him the ultimate trash. I couldn't help but smirk. The next morning, my dad called me, his voice tight with anxiety. "And, look at the stock market. William just hosted a live stream. He's claiming I forced him to embezzle the funds, and he's showing fake wire transfers to our family accounts." My heart sank. I checked the market. Our family company's stock was tanking, dropping fast. Another hashtag was trending, David Martinez embezzlement. Arthur frowned beside me, pulling out his phone to make some calls, but I stopped him. "Don't worry. I was waiting for him to make this move." I opened William's live stream on YouTube. He was dressed in a sleek suit, looking perfectly remorseful, crying to the camera. I was young and stupid. David Martinez coerced me into doing it. All the money went into their offshore accounts. I am willing to cooperate with the feds. I just want to do the right thing. Grace was sitting next to him, her eyes bandaged, bowing slightly to the camera in a frail voice. "I know people might not believe us, but William is a good man. He was forced. Please don't hate him." Watching their little performance, I sneered and made a quick call to our legal contact at the SEC. After hanging up, I waved a flash drive in front of Arthur. "This contains the real paper trail of William and Grace moving the funds to their own accounts, along with audio recordings of them planning to drain my family's company 6 months ago." Arthur raised an eyebrow, a proud smile playing on his lips as he ruffled my hair. "You're always 3 steps ahead, aren't you?" I smiled back. But before I could speak, the front doorbell rang. I opened it to find 2 federal agents standing there, badges in hand. "And Martinez? We're with the SEC. We have a warrant to bring you in for questioning regarding your father's alleged financial fraud." The 2 SEC agents stood in the doorway, their faces cast in the rigid, unyielding mold of federal authority. The taller one, Agent Miller, held the warrant out, his eyes scanning the elegant foyer of my estate before resting on me. "And Martinez," Miller said, his voice clipped and professional. "We have a warrant to bring you in for questioning regarding your father's alleged financial fraud, tax evasion, and the illegal diversion of venture capital funds. Please come with us." Arthur stepped forward immediately. His towering frame easily eclipsed the agents, casting a long shadow across the marble floor. The warm, gentle man who had just ruffled my hair a moment ago was gone. In his place stood the ruthless head of the Blackwood Empire. His eyes were cold, calculating, and predatory. "If you want to take my wife anywhere, you will wait for our legal counsel," Arthur said, his voice low and vibrating with a dangerous edge. "And you will explain to me exactly what trash William Thompson fed you to get this warrant signed so quickly." Agent Miller didn't flinch, but his colleague shifted slightly, clearly aware of who Arthur Blackwood was. To offend the Blackwood family in this city was to court professional suicide. Mr. Blackwood, we are simply executing a warrant based on newly submitted digital evidence and wire transfer logs, Miller explained, though his tone was noticeably more polite. If Mrs. Blackwood is innocent, the questioning will be brief. I placed a hand on Arthur's arm. The fabric of his bespoke suit was warm beneath my fingertips, a steadying anchor in the sudden storm. It's fine, Arthur, I said, my voice entirely devoid of panic. I looked at the flash drive sitting in my palm, the heavy, silver piece of metal that contained William's absolute destruction. In fact, this is perfect. I was actually about to call them myself. Let's go. Arthur looked down at me, the tension in his jaw softening just a fraction as he saw the absolute certainty in my eyes. He reached out, his long fingers wrapping around my hand, squeezing it gently. I'm coming with you, he said. It wasn't a request. We left the estate in Arthur's armored SUV, followed closely by the SEC vehicles. During the 30-minute drive to the federal building, Arthur's phone never stopped ringing. He was orchestrating our defense with the precision of a military general, summoning the city's top white-collar defense attorneys to meet us at the destination. By the time we walked through the heavy glass doors of the SEC headquarters, a team of 5 elite lawyers in matching charcoal suits was already waiting for us. At the head of the team was Gabriel Stone, a legendary defense attorney who had never lost a federal case. As we were led down the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallway toward the interrogation room, a door at the far end opened. William Thompson walked out, flanked by his own lawyers. He looked exhausted. But the moment his eyes landed on me and Arthur, a malicious, triumphant smirk spread across his face. And William called out, his voice dripping with mock pity. I told you not to push me. If you had just behaved, if you had just given Grace the money she deserved for her medical treatment, we wouldn't be here. But you just had to play the hero. He glanced at Arthur, his smirk twisting into a sneer. And you, Blackwood. You thought you could just sweep in and take what's mine? Let's see how much you love her when her father is rotting in a federal penitentiary and her family's name is dragged through the dirt. Arthur didn't even look at him. He kept his eyes forward, walking past William, as if he were nothing more than a stain on the wall. I stopped, however. I turned my head slowly, meeting William's crazed, bloodshot eyes. William, I said, my voice a soft, dangerous whisper. I hope you memorized the script of that live stream you did this morning. Because it's the last piece of fiction you'll ever get to publish. His smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, but he quickly recovered, letting out a sharp, bitter laugh. Keep dreaming, Anne. The paper trail doesn't lie. No, I agreed, a cold, serene smile touching my lips. It doesn't. In the interrogation room, the air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and ozone. Agent Miller and his partner sat across the polished metal table from Gabriel Stone and me. Arthur sat in the corner of the room, his silent, imposing presence dominating the space. Miller slid a stack of documents across the table. These are the wire transfer records provided by William Thompson, Miller said. They show 3 separate transactions, totaling $12 million, routed from Thompson's startup venture fund directly into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The beneficiary of that account is listed as David Martinez. The digital signatures match your father's personal encryption keys. Gabriel Stone didn't even look at the papers. He simply rested his hands on the table and leaned forward. Agent Miller, my client has a submission of her own, Gabriel said smoothly. He gestured to me. I placed the silver flash drive onto the metal table and slid it toward the agent. What is this? Miller asked, raising an eyebrow. This is the complete, unedited digital ledger of William Thompson's startup. Extracted directly from their secure cloud backup, I explained, leaning back in my chair. Along with the forensic IP routing logs from the day those wire transfers were made. Miller looked skeptical. Mr. Thompson provided us with the same ledger. No, I corrected him. William provided you with a modified ledger. What you have on that flash drive is the blockchain-verified version of the transactions. As you know, blockchain ledgers cannot be altered retroactively without leaving a digital footprint. If you look at the forensic logs, you will see that the IP address used to authorize those offshore accounts did not originate from my father's office, nor did it use his encryption keys. I paused, letting the silence hang in the room. They originated from a private suite at the hospital where Grace Young is currently admitted. Specifically, from a laptop registered to William Thompson's personal MAC address, utilizing the hospital's guest Wi-Fi network at 3:14 a.m. yesterday. Miller's partner immediately grabbed the flash drive and plugged it into a secure government laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he ran the verification scripts. As the data began to populate the screen, the agent's expression shifted from professional skepticism to utter shock. "He's right," the second agent muttered, his voice barely a whisper. The encryption keys used to sign David Martinez's name were generated only 48 hours ago. It's a cloned key signature. And the beneficiary of the Cayman Islands account. The agent looked up, his eyes wide. The beneficial owner isn't David Martinez. The account was registered under a shell corporation called GY Holdings. The sole shareholder of GY Holdings is Grace Young. "But that's not all," I said, my voice cold as ice. "Please play the audio files." In the folder labeled evidence_03. The agent clicked the mouse. A high-definition audio recording began to play through the laptop speakers. "Are you sure the SEC will buy it?" Grace's voice was unmistakable, though it lacked the frail, trembling quality she had used in the live stream. It was sharp, calculated, and greedy. "They'll buy it," William's voice replied, filled with a manic, arrogant confidence. "I used a cloned key to sign David's name to the wire transfers. Once the feds freeze the Martinez Group's assets, and will have to come crawling back to me on her knees, begging me to withdraw the charges. We'll use the $12 million in the Cayman account to start over in Europe. The feds will be too busy chasing David to look at us." "And my eyes?" Grace giggled. "The doctor I paid off already filed the fake medical report. Everyone thinks I'm going blind because of Anne. The public sympathy is entirely on our side. The stock of Martinez Group is already tanking." "Let it tank," William sneered. "We'll buy the dip through a dummy corp, take control of the board, and kick her father out of his own company. It's poetry. Grace. She wanted to ruin me. I'm going to take everything she owns." The recording clicked off. The silence in the interrogation room was deafening. Agent Miller sat frozen, his face pale. The sheer, overwhelming evidence of a coordinated conspiracy, perjury, and digital fraud was laid bare before him. Gabriel Stone stood up, smoothing his jacket. "Agent Miller, it appears your star witness has not only committed massive financial fraud, but has also lied to federal officers, fabricated evidence, and attempted to frame a prominent citizen to cover up his own embezzlement. I believe my client is free to go." Miller slowly closed his folder. He looked at me, a profound sense of embarrassment and anger in his eyes, anger directed entirely at William Thompson. "Mrs. Blackwood," Miller said, his voice tight. "You are free to go. And I believe we have some urgent warrants to issue." By the time Arthur and I walked out of the federal building, the afternoon sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the concrete plaza. I checked my phone. The internet was still in a frenzy. The hashtag David Martinez embezzlement was still trending, and the Martinez Group stock had dropped another 8% in the last hour. "Are you ready?" Arthur asked, holding the door of the SUV open for me. "Let's do it," I said. I called my PR director, Sarah. "Sarah, upload the digital packet to the major tech journals and financial news outlets. Release the blockchain logs, the IP tracking data, and the full audio recording of William and Grace. Do it now." "On it, boss," Sarah replied, her voice buzzing with excitement. "This is going to be a bloodbath." It took less than 5 minutes for the tide to turn. I sat in the passenger seat of Arthur's SUV, watching the financial portals in real time. The moment the evidence was published, it felt like a bomb had exploded across the internet. The tech blog TechCrunch was the first to break the story with a massive headline: "Exposed, Silicon Valley Golden Boy William Thompson fabricated SEC evidence, framed billionaire David Martinez to cover up $12 million embezzlement." The audio recording of William and Grace planning the frame-up went viral on X and TikTok within seconds. The public, who had just been crying tears of sympathy for the blind Grace Young, suddenly realized they had been played like cheap violins. The comments sections erupted. At Silicon Valley Watcher, "Oh my God, the audio is horrifying." They literally laughed about framing an old man and faking a medical condition. "William Thompson is a monster." At Tech Bro Hunter, Grace Young's eyes are perfectly fine. She literally paid off a doctor to fake the report. They stole $12 million and tried to ruin the family that funded them. At Market Mover, look at the Martinez Group stock. It's bouncing back like a rocket. Indeed, the stock chart for Martinez Group looked like a vertical wall. After plunging nearly 20% over the course of the day, the stock rebounded instantly, soaring past its original price as institutional investors realized the company was completely innocent and had been the victim of a malicious smear campaign. At that exact moment, Arthur's tablet buzzed. He glanced at the screen, a rare, genuine smile spreading across his face. What is it? I asked. My investment team just finished acquiring the shares, Arthur said, his voice smooth and satisfied. During the panic sell-off today, Blackwood Capital bought up 15% of the floating stock of Martinez Group at a massive discount. We just made a paper profit of $80 million in 30 minutes. And more. Importantly. He turned to look at me, his dark eyes shining with pride. We now hold enough voting shares to block any hostile takeover attempt forever. Your father's company is completely safe, Anne. I felt a sudden, overwhelming wave of emotion. In my past life, my father had been forced into bankruptcy, his health deteriorating rapidly until he passed away in shame, all while William and Grace celebrated their stolen wealth. To see the company not only saved but strengthened, and my father's honor fully restored, felt like a heavy stone had finally been lifted from my chest. Thank you, Arthur, I whispered. He reached over, taking my hand and kissing the back of it. You did the heavy lifting, my love. I'm just here to make sure no one gets in your way. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I knew exactly who it was. I answered and put it on speaker. Anne. You bitch. What did you do? William's voice was screeching, completely unhinged. He sounded like a cornered animal, gasping for breath. The feds are at my office. They're freezing my accounts. You ruined me. You ruined everything. I didn't ruin you, William, I said, my voice dead calm. You did this to yourself the moment you decided to steal from my family and frame my father. Did you really think you could play the same game twice and get away with it? Twice? William gasped, his voice suddenly dropping to a terrified whisper. What do you mean, twice? You know exactly what I mean, I said. Enjoy the prison cell, William. I hear federal facilities aren't very forgiving of white-collar fraudsters who try to blame their crimes on elderly men. Anne, wait. Please. William began to beg, his voice cracking. We can work this out. I'll tell the feds it was all Grace's idea. She's the one who wanted the money. She forced me to do it. Please, just withdraw the evidence. I didn't let him finish. I hung up and blocked the number. Turning to Arthur, I said, he's going to try to run. He won't get far, Arthur replied, his eyes narrowing. I've already had my security team monitor the airport and the private jet terminals. The police are already on their way to his apartment. Meanwhile, in a private suite at the San Jose Medical Center, Grace Young was staring at her phone in absolute horror. The white bandages that had been wrapped around her head for the live stream were gone, tossed carelessly onto the bedside table. Her eyes, supposedly on the verge of permanent blindness, were wide, healthy, and filled with a cold, desperate panic as she scrolled through the viral social media posts. The audio recording of her voice was playing on repeat across every major news network. No, no, no. This can't be happening, Grace muttered, her hands shaking so violently she dropped her phone onto the linoleum floor. The door to her suite burst open. William rushed in, his hair disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained with sweat. He looked like a madman. Grace. We have to go. Now. William gasped, grabbing a duffel bag from the closet and throwing her clothes into it. The feds have a warrant for our arrest. The border control has already flagged our passports, but I have a contact who can get us a private boat to Mexico from the marina. Grace stood up from the bed, her movements quick and agile, completely betraying the frail, helpless persona she had presented to the world. She looked at William, and for the first time, the fake warmth in her eyes was replaced by absolute disgust. Are you insane? Grace hissed. Go to Mexico on a boat? Like common criminals? William, you told me this plan was foolproof. You said and was a brainless idiot who would do whatever you wanted. Now the whole world knows I was faking my injury. It was her. William shouted, his eyes bulging as he grabbed Grace by the shoulders. She knew. She had the blockchain ledgers, Grace. She had the recording. I don't know how, but she knew everything before we even did it. We have to leave, right now, or we're going to spend the next 20 years in prison. Grace stared at him, her mind working rapidly. She looked at the duffel bag. Then at William's panicked, sweaty face. She realized with absolute clarity that William was finished. His company was gone, his reputation was destroyed, and his assets were frozen. He was no longer the golden boy of Silicon Valley. He was dead weight. You're right, Grace said, her voice suddenly softening into a sweet, compliant tone. We need to leave. But my passport is in my apartment. Go get it for me. William. I'll wait for you at the south exit of the hospital. William looked at her, his desperate heart clinging to the illusion of her love. Okay. Okay, I'll go get it. Meet me at the exit in 20 minutes. Don't let anyone see you. He leaned in to kiss her, but Grace subtly turned her head, letting his lips brush her cheek. William, too panicked to notice, turned and rushed out of the room. The moment the door clicked shut, the softness vanished from Grace's face. Idiot, she spat. She quickly reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a small, metallic device, a cold hardware wallet containing $3 million in untraceable cryptocurrency, the only part of the embezzled funds that the SEC hadn't been able to freeze because she had kept the private keys offline. She had no intention of going to Mexico on a dingy boat with a ruined man. She had a fake passport under a different name in her apartment, and she was going to board a flight to Switzerland alone. She grabbed her designer purse, threw her jacket on, and walked out of the room, completely ignoring the blindness she had claimed only hours before. She took the elevator down to the parking garage, her heart hammering against her ribs. She was almost at her car when a cold, calm voice echoed through the concrete structure. Going somewhere, Grace? Grace froze, her blood turning to ice. I stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, my hands slipped casually into the pockets of my trench coat. Beside me, Arthur stood like a silent shadow, his presence filling the empty garage with suffocating pressure. And, Grace gasped, her face draining of color. She instinctively took a step back, her hand clutching her purse where the crypto wallet was hidden. I don't know what you're talking about. I was just going to get some air. Without your bandages? I asked, tilting my head. It's a miracle, Grace. Your eyes seem to have healed perfectly in a matter of hours. The SEC forensic medical team will be very interested to examine this sudden recovery. Grace's sweet demeanor completely evaporated. Her face twisted into an ugly, venomous sneer. You think you've won, and, she spat, her voice trembling with hatred. So what? If you exposed us? William is the one who signed the financial documents. He's the CEO. I'm just a victim he manipulated. I'll hire the best lawyers, tell them. He forced me to go along with it, and I'll walk away clean. You really are a viper, aren't you? I said, shaking my head in disgust. Even now, you're ready to throw your precious William under the bus to save yourself. He's a useless loser. Grace shouted, her composure cracking. He couldn't even handle a simple wedding. If he had just married you and taken your family's money, we wouldn't be in this mess. He ruined my life. Actually, a shaky, broken voice spoke from the shadows near the entrance of the garage. William stepped out from behind a parked SUV. He was clutching Grace's passport in his hand, his face pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of profound shock and utter heartbreak. He had come back to get her, only to hear every single word she had just said. Grace. William whispered, his voice trembling. You were going to leave me? You called me a useless loser? Grace turned, her eyes widening in horror as she realized she had been caught. William. No. I didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to get in to leave us alone. I gave up everything for you. William screamed, his voice cracking as tears spilled down his face. I ruined my wedding. I embezzled $12 million. I risked federal prison for you. And you were going to take the crypto and run to Switzerland without me? William, please, listen to me. Grace stepped forward, trying to grab his arm. But William slapped her hand away with a violent swing. You lying bitch. William roared, his sanity completely snapping. He lunged at her, grabbing her by the collar of her jacket. If I'm going down, you're coming with me. We're going to prison together. The two of them began to struggle, screaming and cursing at each other, their elegant, high society masks completely shattered as they tore at each other like rabid dogs. It was a pathetic, disgusting display of their true nature, too. Parasites who had built their relationship on greed and lies, now destroying each other the moment the warmth of their stolen wealth was gone. Arthur didn't even have to interfere. He simply raised his phone, and within seconds, several police cruisers pulled into the parking garage, their sirens wailing and red and blue lights flashing against the concrete walls. The officers jumped out, guns drawn. Police. Hands in the air. Step away from each other. William and Grace were pinned to the ground, their wrists cuffed behind their backs. As they were dragged toward the police cars, William turned his head, looking at me through the window of the cruiser. He looked broken, his eyes empty and hollow, realizing that everything he had fought for, everything he had betrayed me for in 2 lifetimes, was nothing but a lie. I stood beside Arthur, watching the police cars drive away, their sirens fading into the distance. "It's over," I whispered. "Not yet," Arthur said softly, his arm wrapping around my waist, pulling me close against his chest. "There's still one more place we need to go to close this chapter forever." 1 month later. The Silicon Valley business landscape had undergone a massive shift. Williams' startup had filed for bankruptcy, its intellectual property bought up by Martinez Group for pennies on the dollar. William and Grace were locked away in a federal holding facility, awaiting a trial where the prosecution was seeking the maximum 20-year sentence for conspiracy, grand larceny, and perjury. But for me, the final ghost of my past life still lingered. And that ghost lived in Napa Valley. The Napa Valley Vineyard and Estate was hosting its annual autumn charity gala. It was the exact same venue where, in my past life, William had drugged my champagne and handed me over to Mark Vance. It was the place where my life had ended in cold, dark terror as I fell from the stone balcony of the VIP lounge. I had bought the entire vineyard 3 weeks ago. Tonight, the gala was being hosted under my name. The theme was new beginnings, and the proceeds were going to support victims of domestic abuse and corporate exploitation. The estate was breathtakingly beautiful, lit by thousands of fairy lights draped over the ancient oak trees. High society guests, venture capitalists, and tech elites wandered through the lush vineyards, sipping world-class wine. I stood on the second-story stone balcony of the VIP lounge, the exact spot where I had taken my final breath in my previous life. The night wind was cool, rustling the silk of my deep emerald green gown. But this time, I didn't feel the paralyzing cold of fear. I felt entirely warm, wrapped in the absolute security of the present. "You look beautiful," Arthur's deep voice spoke from behind me. He walked out onto the balcony, holding 2 glasses of sparkling cider. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his dark hair brushed back, looking every bit the king of the high society world. He handed me a glass. I smiled, taking a sip. "I was just thinking about how different this place feels tonight," I said, looking out over the glowing vineyard. "In my past life, I felt so small here. So helpless." Arthur stepped closer, his large hand resting on the stone balustrade next to mine. "You were never small, Anne. You were just surrounded by parasites who tried to drain your light. But you fought your way back. You saved your family. You destroyed your enemies, and you claimed your destiny." He looked down at me, his eyes filled with an intensity that made my heart flutter. "And you let me be a part of it. You are my destiny, Arthur," I said softly, leaning my head against his shoulder. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors of the VIP lounge behind us creaked open. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I turned slowly, my hand instinctively tightening around my glass. A man stood in the doorway, his clothes disheveled, his face pale and haggard. He had bypassed the security downstairs somehow, his clothes covered in dirt as if he had crawled through the vineyard to get here. It was William. He had posted a massive, desperate bail 3 days ago, using the very last of his family's assets, just so he could be out of prison for a few days before his final trial. He stared at me, his eyes wide and bloodshot, filled with a terrifying, manic intensity. In his hand, he was clutching a small, glass vial. "Anne," William whispered, his voice hoarse. "You're hosting a gala here? At this vineyard? You did this on purpose. You wanted to mock me." Arthur immediately stepped in front of me, his body shielding me from William Thompson. "You are trespassing on private property. If you take one more step, my security will ensure you spend the rest of your bail period in a hospital bed." William didn't seem to hear him. He was looking only at me, his hands shaking violently as he held up the vial. "I remember, Anne," William cried, his voice cracking with madness. "I remember the past life too. I remember the luxury, the power, the way everyone looked up to me. I was the king of Silicon Valley. And you were just my quiet, obedient wife who gave me everything. Why did you change? Why did you ruin it?" He took a step forward, his face twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. "If you hadn't changed, Grace would still have her eyes, and I would still have my company. You took my life away from me. You cheated. You used Arthur to destroy me." "I didn't take your life, William," I said, stepping out from behind Arthur's shoulder, looking at him with nothing but cold pity. "You threw it away. In our past life, you drugged me on this exact balcony. You let Mark Vance abuse me. And you laughed while I fell to my death. Did you think there would be no karma for that?" William froze, his pupils dilating as the memory of his past crimes was dragged into the light. I I was just doing what I had to do, William stammered, trying to justify his monstrous actions even now. You forced me to marry you. You threatened my startup. You deserved it. No one deserves what you did to me, I said, my voice rising, steady and powerful. And this time, I am the one standing on this balcony. And you are the one who has lost everything. Then let's end it here. William screamed, completely losing his mind. He uncorked the vial, lunging forward with a desperate, animalistic roar, trying to throw the liquid, some kind of corrosive acid, directly into my face. But he was far too slow. Arthur's reaction was instantaneous. He stepped forward, his boot catching William's wrist in a brutal, lightning-fast kick. The glass vial flew out of William's hand, shattering against the stone wall, the acid hissing and eating away at the masonry. With a swift, powerful movement, Arthur grabbed William by the collar of his shirt and slammed him against the stone balustrade. William gasped, the wind knocked out of him as he hung precariously over the edge of the balcony, the exact same edge I had fallen from in my past life. Below him, the dark, empty vineyard stretched out like an abyss. No. Please. Don't let me fall. William shrieked, his manic courage instantly vanishing as he looked down at the drop. He clutched Arthur's forearms, begging for his life, his face wet with tears and sweat. Arthur, please. I'm sorry. I'll go to prison. I'll plead guilty. Just don't drop me. Arthur looked down at him, his face carved of absolute stone. He held William over the edge with a single, effortless grip, his eyes showing no mercy. He looked at me, waiting for my word. I walked over to the edge, looking down at the shivering, pathetic man who had caused me so much pain across 2 lifetimes. Let him go, Arthur, I said softly. William let out a terrified scream, thinking I meant to let him fall. I mean, pull him back, I clarified, my voice filled with a calm, absolute peace. He doesn't deserve the quick escape of a fall. He deserves to spend every single day of the next 20 years in a cold, dark cell, remembering how he had everything and lost it all because of his own greed. Arthur nodded. With a disdainful grunt, he threw William back onto the solid stone floor of the balcony. William collapsed into a heap, weeping hysterically, his spirit completely broken. Within seconds, the estate security team and several police officers rushed onto the balcony, pinning William to the floor and dragging him away in handcuffs. He didn't even fight back, he just sobbed, a hollow shell of a man who had finally realized the weight of his own karma. As the doors closed behind them, the silence returned to the balcony. The wind blew through the vineyard, carrying the sweet scent of ripening grapes. The air felt clean, as if a long-standing poison had finally been washed away from the earth. Arthur walked over to me, wrapping his arms around me from behind, his chin resting gently on my shoulder. Are you okay? He murmured. I've never been better, I said, leaning back into his warmth. The past is finally gone, Arthur. There are no more ghosts. 3 months later. The sun was shining brightly over the rolling green hills of our private estate in Santa Barbara. The air was filled with the scent of fresh ocean breeze and white roses. Today was our real wedding. There were no massive crowds of fake high society vultures, no business transactions disguised as vows, and no toxic exes waiting to ruin the day. There were only my parents, Arthur's family, and our closest, truest friends. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the bridal suite, wearing a simple, elegant off-the-shoulder gown of pure white silk. My father walked into the room, wearing a proud, handsome tuxedo. His eyes were shiny with tears as he looked at me. Anne, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You are the most beautiful bride I have ever seen. I am so proud of you, my girl. Not just because of how you saved our family, but because of the strong, incredible woman you've become. I walked over and hugged him tightly, breathing in the familiar, comforting scent of his cologne. Thank you, Dad. I couldn't have done any of it without you. The ceremony is about to start, my mother said, wiping her eyes as she entered the room. Arthur is already waiting. And let me tell you, that boy looks like he's about to burst with happiness. I smiled, my heart beating with a sweet, fluttery excitement. When the heavy oak doors of the chapel opened, and I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, my eyes locked onto Arthur. He stood at the altar, looking incredibly handsome in his bespoke black suit. The moment his eyes met mine, a soft, breathtaking smile spread across his face, a smile meant only for me, filled with a devotion that had survived 2 lifetimes. The priest began the ceremony. The words were beautiful, solemn, and true. When it came time for the vows, Arthur took my hands in his. His palms were warm, dry, and steady. Anne, Arthur said, his deep voice echoing through the quiet chapel, filled with An absolute, unwavering certainty. In this life, and in any life that comes. After, I promise to protect you, to cherish you, and to stand by your side. Through every storm. I will be your shield, your partner, and your home. I love you, now and forever. Tears of pure happiness spilled down my cheeks as I looked up into his eyes. Arthur, I whispered, my voice steady and clear. You showed me what true love and respect looked like when I had lost all faith in the world. I promise to walk beside you, to support you, and to love you with everything I have. From this day on, my heart is yours. We exchanged the simple, elegant platinum bands. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The priest smiled. You may kiss the bride. Arthur leaned down, his hand gently cupping my cheek. His lips pressed against mine in a sweet, deep, and passionate kiss, a promise of a beautiful, peaceful future that we had fought for and won. The guests erupted into a warm, joyous applause. As we walked down the aisle hand in hand, leaving the chapel and stepping out into the bright, warm California sunshine, I looked up at the clear blue sky. The nightmare of my past life was gone, buried deep beneath the earth where it could never hurt me again. Beside me, the man who loved me stood strong and true. And ahead of us lay a beautiful, unwritten destiny, our own, perfect new beginning.